G'day Bomber fans, we have some great young players on our list, many of which are building their game over in the reserves for our VFL team. So every couple of weeks I'm going to review the AFL listed players who are over there under Carousella, just so we can all be up to date as a fan base with how they're tracking. These games are all free to stream on the official AFL website if you want to. Let's get into it. Alright, before we go through the individuals, a quick recap of the games we've played. We're currently 0 wins from 2 games, struggling in the VFL as we always do. We were beaten soundly by Brisbane 62-99 at home. The margin doesn't really reflect how dominant the Lions were, in my opinion. We got off to a fast start, trailing by a goal at halftime, but the second half we conceded 11 to our 6. It was a really poor loss, and we didn't really get a response the week after either. I actually thought we were better against Sandringham despite losing by more. We were right in the game until that third quarter, and that was the real outlier. We conceded 6 goals and scored 1. If you isolate that term, we only lost by 1 goal, but still not good enough. We need to perform better. We do have some injuries which will affect the reserves more than the senior team, but still a very poor start to the year. Alright, on to the individuals, starting with Elijah Tsatas, who only played in the Sandringham game. He was dropped into the 2s after our AFL loss to Sydney. He was pretty lively. It was good. It was good response from the young lad. The only issue is he won't really have an opportunity to come back into the senior side, you would think. He doesn't really demand consideration with his 24 touches, but he is definitely keeping tabs on any available spot. He was really good in contests. I love the way he weaves in and out when confident. He grows to new levels in the reserves. He finds the ball more. He impacts more when he has it. In saying that, he did have some poor moments with ball in hand that he would like back. I do think our midfield struggled compared to theirs as well, but Tsatas from an individual viewpoint did more good than bad. He was one of our better AFL listed players from the Sandringham game. Now, Shiel was named to play against Brisbane, but just minutes before the start he was scratched because of a slight abductor strain, I believe. He didn't have a disposal this game, he just didn't have a game, full stop. Sam Weideman has played both games. He really struggled in that first one. It was a rough viewing. All forwards did, to be fair. The service going forward was poor all day, but Weideman really had it rough. 6 disposals, 2 marks, 1 behind. That tells you all you need to know. The only time he did anything good was when he took a nice contested mark inside 50 but missed the set shot. Really poor start to the year. The following week was much more promising. He missed a lot of the first quarter because of a head injury. He had Caddy's teeth stuck in the old scout, but he still managed to be an aerial threat. He pushed through the pain, kicked a couple of goals. He probably should have had another. He had some good marks. Just needs to have a big outing to build confidence. We don't want Weideman kicking 2 a week in the VFL. We need 3 to 4 so he can start pushing for the senior team again. It's a contract year after all. Lewis Hayes has had a really promising start to the season. He did have it tough against the Lions. He was switching around on different forwards. He couldn't really get into his rhythm. He had plenty of the ball, which I think we will see more often. He does typically use it well. Not as much in the Brisbane game, but he still had an impact. He had some nice intercept possessions. In both games, that was the case, to be honest. I thought he was better in the Sandringham match. 25 disposals and used it a lot better this time round. Often took kickouts and had some cheapies down back, so that 25 disposal figure more speaks to the fact we couldn't really move the ball forward much. I think the stats make his game look a lot better than it was, but he again also managed to get around interceptions. I think he was the most prominent of our defenders, which is good. It was tough at times though, as was the case for all our backs. When you're in a poor team, it's hard to have perfect games. Our defense couldn't just shut out every attack that came its way. He had some down moments, but I think he was one of the whole team's best. It's just hard when you are a skinny lad having to play on big, thick opponents. Nick Bryan, he's been doing Nick Bryan things. He shared the spoils with Darcy Fort, who played for Brisbane the following week. They pretty much both had the same amount of hitouts and disposals. I would say Fort's impact around the ground was greater, but I reckon Bryan edged out Fort for impact and stoppages. He was really good against Sandringham though, going up against Tom Campbell for most of the day, who is as experienced as anyone in the level. He had 40 hitouts, kicked a late goal, 11 touches. He looked a real good ruckman. His craft was really great. The only issue is Bryan can't really force his way into the team while both Goldie and Draper are fit, so he will have to continue dominating in the VFL until then. And I don't think it won't. I think it won't really be thought of Scott's to include him until he starts to really assert himself in play around the ground. I think we need to see the young man get up more for contested marks. AFL listed ruckman should really be doing that at this lower level. Nate Caddy, he was pretty promising in his debut. He had some fantastic contests. He looks a lot taller and bigger than the figures suggest, and I think it's because of his presence. He really does look like a marking target at such a young age, which is great. He managed to kick a couple of goals and do some really nice things as well throughout the game. Game of glimpses, but good glimpses. The second match was unfortunate. He had a head collision with Sam Weideman in the opening minutes and lost his teeth, so he needed to go to hospital straight away to fix the issue. He only played a few minutes, which is why his stats look so poor. He should be right to play this weekend. I guess there won't be a VFL game this weekend, but the week after we'll see more of him. I'd love to see him have a breakout game soon, get us fans keeping an eye on the VFL move. Davey Jr. didn't play against the Lions in round 1. He was playing against the Swans in the AFL, and he was dropped and played in round 2 in the VFL. He was very poor though. He didn't really manage to get involved in the game at all, and it looked like he was a first year player making his debut. He was just not ready for the speed of the game for some reason, because he has played much better at a high level before. He played mostly forward, but had enough midfield stints for his output to be better, or at least suggest it to be better. He really didn't have much impact at all. Needs to lift or he's going to start falling behind others in the pecking order. It was a very disappointing response to be dropped. Luamon Lual has had a very interesting start to his career. He really struggled to find his feet in that first game against Brisbane, but I think that can be attributed to a debut against a far superior team. He didn't have much of the ball, and when he did, he was a touch erratic with it, but again, under pressure, young player, that can be expected. I thought he was much improved against Sandringham though. I actually really liked what he gave us out of defence at times. He's definitely more of a rebounder than a pure defender. I feel like there were times when he was on the ground but absent from D50 play, just taking his time to get back and help out after a venture forward. But I still really liked what he gave us going the other way. He didn't have heaps of the ball, but you felt a real shift when he did have it. If he can fix up his defensive work, tidy up his ball use, and find ways to get involved more, I think we have a real player on our hands. Him and Roberts together look to be building nicely. The improvement between rounds 1 and 2 for Lual is super uplifting in my opinion. I was really happy with most of his game on the weekend. Jayden Davey, for starters, it's just great to see him out on the field after so long on the sidelines, around 2 or 3 years with those knee injuries, but he is back and starting to have an impact, which is good. He was fairly quiet in round 1, but had glimpses to get us keen. That goal was the highlight of the day. He applied pressure with quick closing speed, forcing a fumble, and then exploded with a running goal from the centre square to the goal square. I thought the second game he had less X-factor moments, but there was consistency to it. It was a more rounded performance, and probably more to like from it if you aren't just watching the highlights. His pressure was good. His little 1%ers go unnoticed, but helped us going forward. He kicked a really nice set shot just minutes after missing one he should have nailed. He isn't setting the world on fire. Those stats aren't anything that impressive, but he is new to this level of footy. Last time he played, it was school footy when he was still a kid pretty much, so he'll probably take a few more weeks to settle in before we really start to see him decide matches, if he does manage to get to that level. Archie Roberts, now he has been outstanding so far in his short time at Essendon. He starred in the VFL practice games and brought that form to the regular season. He led all Essendon players on ground for disposals against the Lions, gathering 25 and slotting a goal as well. He loves to roam on that wing and put himself in good areas to find the pill and use it well on the left, and it wasn't a one-off because he had 22 disposals and kicked a couple of behinds against Sandringham the next week. If anything to nitpick, I would say his goal kicking does need a bit of tweaking, maybe his situational awareness at times. It's usually pretty solid, but every now and then he coughs up the pill in a dangerous area. Before he plays AFL, he'll need to work on this, but the signs are there. He is the closest of any debutant to playing senior footy right now. Not gonna lie, there were many times I forgot Vigo Visentini was playing in that first game, and this is to be expected from a long-term prospect in the ruck. He didn't really have much impact at all. I mean, I guess there were snippets of ruckcraft, but I thought his output was really minimal compared to others. The second game against Sandringham, though, that was really uplifting. He had more of a permanent forward role, I guess maybe because of the injury to Caddy and Weideman in the first quarter, and he looked dangerous. He kicked the first goal of the game, I believe, when they were both off the field, and he had a few other chances as well. He didn't really get much of the ball, but had some really nice moments that give me faith he could grow into a forward ruck. If you're kicking 2 goals in the VFL in your second game as a long-term key positional prospect, that's a good sign, so we should be happy with what we have seen so far, but we still need to see a bit more of it before we start to get really excited. That is all. Quick VFL player recap. Let me know what you think down below. Who are you most keen to see feature in the AFL side? Is anyone ready yet in your eyes? Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to see more like it. I'm going to post more of these VFL videos, probably once a fortnight, maybe every 3 weeks, we'll see, and as always, go Bombers.